Hey, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. Thanks very much for joining our Cybeready product demonstration webinar this morning. I'm Harvey Morrison, and I'm the Chief Revenue Officer here at Cybeready, and I'm really glad to be joined today by Demi Cordon, one of our key account executives, who's actually going to walk us through the demonstration today. What I've got is just a few slides to kind of set the foundation and the background conversation before we dive into the demo. So I'll go ahead and get started going through the slides. I'm sure all of you all follow the cybersecurity industry. And one of the things that's very clear out there is the numbers are staggering, right? The rise in the number of phishing attacks that continue to happen year over year to organizations is just astronomical. I mean, the number here from 23 to 24 is 341% rise in that. So the number of organizations that are getting attacked, and then the number of organizations that are getting attacked multiple times continues to go up. There was another study that came out that said if an organization was successfully phished or successfully hacked through a phish, chances are within a year, 67% of those folks are hacked yet again. So the threat continues to be there. It is real and it continues to rise. So, and this rise in the phishing attacks is not just focused on one single industry. It's actually focused pretty much broadly across all industries. Everything from financial services to government to healthcare to SMBs, right? They're really not discriminatory in how they target their attacks. And then what we've seen as the rise in phishing attacks occur, the outcome of those phishing attacks or the results of those phishing attacks are a 35% increase in data breaches and then a 25% increase in the actual cost of cybercrime. So it actually reached a goal this year of $8 trillion. So I mean that's an astronomical number that is getting started probably 75% of the time with a phishing attack. A recent example that I read about in the Financial Times just over the weekend of the cost of cybercrime is Synovus, which is a UK-based healthcare company, which was hacked via phishing attack on June 24th. And according to the article, the hack cost the company over 32 million pounds. So that is ransomware payment, that is cleanup of their systems, that is the notifications of all the folks that has to happen, all the legal things that go on around that. 32 million pounds, which I thought was staggering. But
Yeah.
what brought it home even more to me was the Financial Times reported that their total profits for the year prior, FY23, were $5 million. So think about this. A company has been in business for 15, 20 years, works really hard to get themselves very profitable, and one hack can wipe all of that out. So phishing attacks and the resulting data breaches and ransomware that can occur can truly have life-altering consequences on companies. So we're, I think in a very serious space, and the things that we're doing, the products that we're offering are very serious. But on top of all that, or if you really dig into that, the real problem we at Cybeready have noticed for companies trying to combat phishing attacks, which again lead to data breaches and ransomware, is that even though there have been years and years of training, employees still don't seem to be getting any better at either spotting or falling for these phishing attacks. In fact, industry data shows that 46% of employees, despite being trained, so we go through the organization's training program to train them against phishing, almost 50% still struggle to identify and not click on a phishing email. So, in our mind, that's the really big problem, right? The symptom that you're seeing is data breaches and ransomware and the cost of it. But the true sickness, the true problem is underlying employees aren't prepared to handle this, even though they're being trained.
And Harvey, what's so frustrating to me is there's so many like global like regulations, there's cyber insurance. And so everyone right now already has something in place, but still somehow like the success rate of these like ransomware phishing type of attacks are going up by 77% year over year. And so
Yeah,
at what point do we start to really like analyze what we're actually doing and is it actually effective?
exactly. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
think the word you hit there, Demi, is effectiveness. I think a lot of organizations, to your point, are checking the box of, hey, we've got a program in place. Don't know what the results are, right? But we have a program in place. And 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that may have been good. But when you talk about a company like Synovus, which essentially lost or had to pay out $32 million for a ransomware attack, and their profits were only 5 million last year, you really need to start to look at effectiveness in what you're doing. So yeah, I wholeheartedly
Yeah.
agree with you there. So
Yeah.
so
Put your
we at
business.
CyberReady obviously follow the training, the security awareness training industry very close. And we believe the problem lies in the methods and the current approaches provided by security awareness training technologies today. The way these solutions are designed and delivered simply aren't engaging employees. And I think it's being shown out in the fact of the lack of the effectiveness. So, great example is, hey, I clicked on a link. I'm brought to a page that says, hey, sign in to register for your security training class. And about a week later, I take the class. And while the class is running in the background, I'm working on my email, putting a
Mhm.
to-do list together. I think we've all seen that. And I think that's really what we're starting to see the outcome of with, again, the increased rise in phishing attacks. If phishing attacks weren't working, criminal gangs and others wouldn't continue to utilize them. They go a different area. So
Exactly.
again, I think it's engagement, and I think the engagement leads to effectiveness.
Mhm.
So what you're going to see today during the demonstration of the Cybeready platform is really a different fundamental approach to security awareness training. One designed for employee engagement and one that's been shown to have proven results and is able to reduce an overall risk for an organization. So, what's unique about the CyberReady approach is one, it's continuous learning. So, employees can't take a class once or twice a year and check the box that, hey, I've taken the class and expect to be proficient with the training. The training really needs to be continuous. We almost say a monthly basis for this is really ideal.
Yeah.
And also, the training needs to be tailored to the employee's skill level and delivered in context to their job or role. And it must be in the appropriate language as well, right? So, all these things make this training engaging. The training content needs to be short but impactful and delivered just in time. And what we mean by that is hey, when I click on a phishing email link, that training needs to be delivered right then and there to be the most effective, to make sure the employee remembers it and doesn't do it again in the future. It can't happen days or weeks later. Training must be positive, and also the organization must be able to collect signals and feedback to ensure the effectiveness. If I click on a link, that needs to be taken into account as the next training class gets rolled out, right? To make sure you reinforce it. If I don't click on a link, then don't go back and retrain me on that. Train me on something else. Again, this is all about learning, and learning comes from the engagement, and that's a lot of what's driving this engagement.
Yeah.
And the only thing I'll mention too is this seems like a lot. Training monthly, making sure it's in the right language, getting all the context back. Demi's going to walk through this in the demo. But one of the key things that the CyberReady platform provides is automation. So all these things we're talking about are done in an automated fashion. So when we go into organizations, and they look at this, they start to think about, wow, how many more people am I going to have to add to be able to
Mhm.
get this done? And we end up talking to them about you can take folks away or leave the folks there, but start to focus on other things you're going to make your organization more effective, not what email am I going to send for a phishing campaign next month. So you get to do a whole lot more with either less because it's just more efficient and effective from it being an automated approach. And then the last slide I'll cover is, we at CyberReady follow two, great KPIs, we think, across our entire customer base of over, 300 customers. That being high risk reduction, group reduction. So those are your what we call serial clickers. So anytime something comes out, I'm constantly clicking on it, right? And your employee resilience score. So again, how likely are your employees able to actually see and combat a phishing attack? As you can see, over a 12-month period for our entire customer base, some really great numbers there from an improvement perspective. So I'll pause there. I'll stop sharing and I'll turn it over to Demi, who's got a great demonstration for you to continue on with the webinar. But thanks for your time and attention here. And I forgot to mention, if you have questions, feel free to hit us up in the chat as we go along and we'll get them answered. Thanks, Demi.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Harvey, for such an amazing introduction. This is obviously a topic that's near and dear to my heart. So I've been in the industry for over 9 years. I've done everything from like defense in depth, like XDR services, all the way to working with some of the other security vendors that are in the market. And through that, I really started to see and study like where are market changes going? How do we make sure that we're aligning with that? And overall, how do we combat this global crime that we're having to deal with when it comes to ransomware? And so you had mentioned so many good points. And one of the things that I just wanted to pop up before we start to go into this console is that even through this, like we've seen so many organizations start to have that conversation about like AI and machine learning and like where is it appropriate to adopt that. However, when it comes to security awareness training, for whatever reason, it feels like you are going to rely on like a network administrator or a security administrator. You're going to allow that person to guess what should come next based on behavior that your users are doing. Or there's this concept of a one size fits all. And so I'm just going to send these specific things out to the organization. I'm not going to look at like what type of department or role or what that user comes from. And I'm going to expect my IT manager, who's going to be responsible if something happens, to be able to decide what comes next for that user. Now, I think that we've come way too far as a society, especially when it comes from a technological perspective, for us to rely on our own decision making rather than just using a machine. And so when we start to go through this, I really want to share why I'm so passionate about Cybeready, why I'm so passionate in what we do, and why it's been so effective that on average, when users leave some of these competitors in the market, they're immediately seeing within the first 12 months, 80% reduction within their high risk user groups. And so if you guys can see my screen, okay, Harvey, just give me a thumbs up. Perfect. I'd love to begin. And I will preface that if you allow me to talk about Cybeready, like I could talk for years and years on end. And so I'll try and do more of a high level overview and then really give you guys some of these key points that I've seen other CISOs, security leaders really drive their decision in moving to a Cybeready partnership. So the first thing is when you guys get into the console, you're going to see a snapshot of what's happened within your environment recently. So quickly, I want to walk through what's happening from a phishing campaign's perspective. How are users clicking and responding to these phishing campaigns that are going out? How is this increasing or decreasing your high risk user groups, and making sure that every person is seeing that simulation. In addition, we want to see what's going on with these continuous spikes. Like, are my users opening them when they answer these questions on the different topics? Are they answering them correctly? Meaning, are they starting to understand that topic itself? And then, of course, it's super important because as you guys teach your users to identify these phishing attacks, we want to make sure that this goes into the real world. And so, are my users using the reporting button? When they report, are they reporting things that are spam versus phishing? And are they getting smarter with that? And of course, the day old that everyone has is compliance. And so let's make sure your users have completed that. Also, what's super important for Cybeready is measuring that training effectiveness, especially when we talked about that stat that we were just going over, where the success rate of these attacks are going up by 77% year over year, even though we know they already have something. It became immensely important for us to understand is our training effective? And are your users actually reducing in risk over time by using and interacting with our software? And so when we measure how effective that's the training, we're going to think about three main things that I feel is super important. Phishing risk score change. Since this last campaign and this last quarter that they've been running Cybeready, are they getting better at identifying phishing, phishing attacks? With awareness bites, as they are integrating and interacting with their training, are they opening it? Are they, getting a lot out of those trainings? And then, of course, that fish cage reporting rate. Again, like when they're reporting, are they bogging down your SOC team by reporting a bunch of things that are spam? Or are they really starting to report those things that are unknown or known bad? And so I know Harvey mentioned a lot that it is a one click to get you guys set up. And so I want to walk through what it looks like to get you guys set up within our environment, and then what some of our phishing/training campaigns look like. And then we'll hop into reporting, and then we'll open up the rest of the call for Q&A and any questions that you guys have left.
Hey, Demi, I just want to go back and emphasize the automation piece to this that you're going to walk through and show. Because
Yes.
again, I think in talking to all our customers and prospects and folks in the security awareness training, market, what we see is they're overwhelmed, they're overworked. And because of that, they a lot of times don't feel like they can either put out as much, content or as much training as they need on a regular basis. So they always fall back to let's go to once a year, twice a year, and they know that's not 100% really going to protect them.
Yeah.
Or they leave it a little short. Maybe we don't train in the appropriate language. Maybe we don't, do these other things. That is really the beauty of this platform, is the ability for you to automate so many of these things. It will give you the time you need to make sure you're training as much as possible, and that training is relevant, and that training is in context for those folks. So don't, if you're overwhelmed and you're like, hey, I just can't get this done, don't do less. Think about how you can automate some of these things and do more.
Yes. Work smarter, not harder. So when you guys first get set up, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to do an Active Directory integration. This is going to allow us to know, who are your employees? Who do they report to? What type of departments or roles do they come from? That's going to help us contextualize what that environment looks like. Once you're able to do the Active Directory sync, we go back and sync every 9 hours. So especially as you guys have new employees that are coming in, you don't have to do anything else. Just do your normal process, add them into your Active Directory, and we automatically will know to start training them and getting them to the place that they need to be. Once we do that, we need to really start to understand, what does your IT environment look like? Because training is not effective if it's not tailored to what's going on within your environment. And so we will make sure that, we understand what type of organization you come from. We will use relevant industries to really understand where you guys are. But the real benefit here as well is we compare this data against our, over 5 million data points and users that are in our system. And so we know already, what's getting hit by the retail community or finance or healthcare. We know what type of emails trips them up. And so, especially if you have a company that's niche, what I love so much about our machine learning model is that you're able to actually trigger multiple. And so, let's say you're doing education and financial services. That's only going to allow me to be more specific. And think about this as the way to talk to our system before we start getting going in your environment. And so then, of course, one of the things that I've seen is maybe, you have a fully, Microsoft or Google environment, and people are out there sending things that aren't relevant. And so this is really going to really engage your users in a immediate and independent way, but also make sure that everything's tailored to your environment. Outside of that, the only thing that you have left is to do some whitelisting. Of course, we want to make sure it's not getting caught up in any other layer. And then once you do that, our users are going to use, I'm so sorry. Sorry, I know we all have furry friends at home. I apologize. Um, so once we're able to go through that, we want to go in and start to see what that's going to look like in our environment. And so the first thing that we want to do is start off our phishing campaigns. And so our system is so intelligent that we're already based on that organizational profile that we've given you. Before we start setting out your baseline, we want to give you an opportunity to see some of the emails that we've chosen out for your organization. And then in addition to that, of course, there's some that maybe there's been an email that has been plaguing your users. Maybe you guys recently experienced some type of data breach. You do have the ability to create a custom simulation. And then we have over 140 attack vectors that you guys can go ahead and assign to that simulation that you've created. And so I want to show you guys what one of these look like. And so let's say we want to do a standard, you're a Microsoft environment. We want to do a standard password change. When your users go ahead and click on this link, immediately we're going to start to test them a little bit. Hey, would this person actually enter in their credentials or not? Once we find out if they are going to enter in those credentials, it immediately gets you to this page, which I feel is immediate corrective behavior for your users. And so based on the type of email that your users have actually clicked on, we immediately are going to send them something that gives them that, hey, here are some of the red flags that you should have looked out for on the email that you just clicked on. And then here's a 90-second video to really engage you quickly and teach you about this topic. Now, one of the things that I always think about is we have to, especially if we want to increase engagement when it comes to users, we have to meet them where they are. Everyone is already using Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts and TikToks. And so as the years go on, our attention spans get less and less. And so as Harvey had like so smartly mentioned earlier, rather than having a training that's already assigned to your users and they have it running on their second screen and they're doing something else or doing their to-do list, instead, I'm going to meet your users where you are and I'm going to give you quickly, hey, here's the email that you clicked on or the type of email that you clicked on. Here are some of the things that you should have looked out for when you were clicking on that email. And here's some of the things that will help you in the future to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Hey,
And now
hey,
the
Demi, just a quick
yeah,
comment. That right there, in our opinion, is the difference between effectiveness from a training perspective versus, hey, here's 3 pages, 10 pages, a 40-minute video to watch, which is the other approach, which is just, I'm checking the box to be compliant, right?
exactly.
This is really where folks learn. I mean, the data shows it. This is really where folks will. I've clicked on the link. This short video pops up. It's very effective. I know what I did wrong. I'm moving on versus, hey, let's take a class and hope I'm going to remember this again, right? In
Yeah.
context, short and impactful. That is really the difference between effective training and what would just be called, I'm checking the box to be compliant.
Yes, yes, exactly. And one of the things that I was also thinking about as you were saying that is that we also have an accessibility feature. And so I was doing some research and we were going through like North America, and I found out that like 1 in 4 people have a disability. And like me, in my own bias, I always immediately thought it was like a physical disability. And at the same time, we were measuring the engagement because really the problem that they're having with all of these other vendors that are out there right now is there is a rising, like growing indifference and a waning engagement. We're seeing that users, as you start to send them out training, they're starting to resent our IT teams more. And then they're starting to do less and try not to take it. And one of the things when I was doing these studies, I found out that within that 1 in 4, a lot of it ends up being cognitive. And so we think that maybe like part of it is users aren't like engaging with it because they aren't enjoying like what the content is. But another key part of it is, maybe they are on the spectrum. It's not something that they wanted to, reveal to their company. Maybe there are some disabilities that are there that, they don't want people to look at them differently at the office if they were to reveal. And so at the very user level, without the user even having to say anything to you guys, we have specific profiles that are already set up for them. And so people who are vision impaired, or people that have cognitive like disabilities, like dyslexia, and ADHD, and like maybe someone that has like epilepsy. And so we definitely try to make sure that not only is our content engaging and driven based on how your users are engaging with us, but in addition, that it is made and suitable for every single person to make sure we get the maximum capacity out of what we send to a user.
Yep.
And then, of course, the last part that I really want to highlight before we go into the training portion, is languages. I know there's a lot of global companies that are on this phone. Our languages go out automatically for your users based on what is in that Active Directory. And so no additional work from you. We have over 43 different languages, so it'll automatically translate for you guys. And yeah.
And again,
So
that gets back to automation, Demi, and really, what you need to do is the right thing is to fish in the appropriate language. If you don't
exactly.
have the time and you don't have the resources, then you just go back to compliance, you check the box and say, hey, I sent it all out in English, right? Well, that's just not effective.
Yeah.
This automates that process for you and makes sure you can do effective training.
Exactly. There's even certain states that like have laws around that as well. So I know, for example, like Canada in the British Columbia area, same thing. Now they have a law that all of their training has to be done in Canadian French. And so there were so many like Canadian companies that were scrambling around because they're like, part of my company is maybe, headquartered in Toronto, but I have this many employees in BC. And now the training that I've paid or I've spent so much time on for years and years, aren't is not effective or no longer allowed within our regulatory compliance. Yeah. So this is our training bites. I love these bites. There's over 57 different topics. Every month we have a team that goes in and adds new topics, and then remove topics that are no longer relevant. I know right now specifically, of course, QR codes are super, heavy. And so we want to make sure that we are training your users on that. Of course, on a daily basis, we're getting all of these vishing like scams that are coming into our voicemails. And so we really make sure that we are keeping up with the times. We do have a red team that goes in, and looks and analyzes where our market is right now. And then we use that to decide what we need to add into that platform. But what really separates us, from some of these other competitors that are out in the market is, our intelligence that goes behind this. So we have specific groups that we've already tested to understand need specific types of training. And so maybe if you're sorry, Sally, from accounting, I know there's certain types of training that you need to see, or maybe it's a user that's a beginner in your organization. They've never taken any type of security readiness training, in their life before. And so we need to ensure, they're not just coming in your environment to mess things up. And so you'll see that based on how your users are interacting with our phishing side of the console, they will automatically get a bite that comes in bi-weekly, that's going to help them along their learning journey. And our primary goal is to take a user from high risk and make them medium, and then low, to zero until we get to that point that we're flat rate across your organization. We also believe in really having many different types of ways, in which we reach out to users. So for each of these topics, there's also a customized, editable poster that will all be done based on your branding and your logos without any additional work from your team, but automatically can go out to your users as well to figure out however your user likes to engage the best, and then engage with them in that manner. So I'll show you guys a quick example of what any of these look like. Similar to our cat bites, all of these are also translated as well automatically for you guys, so no extra work there. And so we'll send some security tips. So quickly, hey, as far as passwords are concerned, choose longer passwords that are 12 characters or more, use phrases, and keep it to yourself. Don't share it with anybody else. And then right after that, there'll be a quiz question that relates directly to what you just read. And so I am on Mars. It's a strong password. Let's say yes. And immediately your users get that, whoo, congratulations, you did a really good thing. And I want to show you guys really quickly. We have this series called the Fraud Squad. I'm a huge person, but like growing up, I was always the person that needs to get burnt by the fire. And so the primary reason that we have this in here is number one, to show you the hacker's perspective. But let's say, you didn't want to take those 5 to 10 seconds to read those simple bullet points. This is how the hacker would have used your information. Of course, all of this is translated as well. And we find that our users love the Fraud Squad. It's a really cute series. And it goes with about 90% of the training topics that we have in here. And then lastly, I really want to show you guys some of the impact that really happens within this. And so a lot of the things that I hear from a lot of CISOs and security leaders is like really they don't have accurate like data and analytics. They don't really know either A, they don't know what's going on in their environment, or B, they spend hours going through all of this data trying to figure out what's supposed to come next or what is going to be valuable to your stakeholders. And so we've made that easy for you guys. You guys automatically will receive weekly and monthly reports as well as a quarterly report that will just be a link to pop into the console. And so I want to show you guys what one of these reports look like, because especially having worked within this industry for 9 years and 5 years specifically in learning and development, I've seen what our competitors have. And bar none, every time I show this, they're like, wow, my CISO, my CIO, my board would love this. And it really would save me a lot of time. And so give me 1 second. Let me pop this open.
Yeah, Demi, this really goes to address, I don't know the number of folks we've talked to that have said, I have to generate a monthly report for senior management. And I spend, 2 weeks of every month trying to pull all this data together to be able to actually create a valuable and insightful presentation. This again goes back to the automation piece that we talked about and the ability to create this through a click of a button. And then you can spend your time actually being a security awareness training manager. You can actually think about what's my security awareness program? What am I doing? How can I improve it versus creating a bunch of reports?
Yeah, of course, of course. Um, and so this is what we call our periodic business report. So again, all of this will all be branded, colored, logo to your organization. It quickly will show you everything that's happened within your last quarter. So everything from, how many employees have we trained in what languages and locations, the amount of simulations that we're able to get out to your users, reminding you that each of them are individual based on where your users are and their learning and proficiency levels are. And then it'll even go into employee behavior breakdown, which is really effectively corporate culture change within your environment. And so, especially as we go through this, I want to understand like, hey, are my users an invader? Are they better at identifying phishing attacks versus someone that's really good at reporting? So rather than just reporting a bunch of spam, they're actually sending, unknowns or knowns bads to my IT team. And then, of course, how are they doing on their like learning process? Like, are they answering their quiz questions correctly? We will walk through, what's going on from a resilience perspective. And so how do I know my users are actually learning anything? How are they doing when it comes to their training? But then we can even get more specific. And I want to keep in mind that we go up to 5 different user groups, but you guys can really parse this out in any way that you guys want. I know specific organizations are niche and they have niche breakdowns. And so maybe you want to break it down by region. All of this can be automatically done for you. But hey, here are the most vulnerable places within my environment. And I've seen a lot of CISOs come back and be like, oh, well, I've been thinking about one time a year that I go and I visit a specific department and I do a presentation on where should I actually go? And this will tell you right away, hey, here are your most vulnerable departments, but these are the ones that are actually increasing in risk. And so if I see something like that and I'm like, my support team, a lot of people will think, hey, they're IT heavy. And so maybe they really are just skipping past their training, but maybe this is an opportunity to go and reinforce some things. We'll walk through what are the simulations that are clicked on most by your employees, new versus veteran. What are the training topics that they, really love to engage with? But I would arguably say the next two slides are the most important. That's going to be your training effectiveness. Is my phishing risk going down over time? Are my users continuing to report? And how are they doing on their trainings? And then arguably, this is the most important slot, which is what's going on with my high risk user groups. If you really want to know if this training is effective, if you really want to know that like you're getting ROI out of the investment that you made, it's, hey, are we less risky? And that's all really the stakeholders are going to care about. And so there are tons of different reports in here. We benchmark, we slice and dice data in so many different ways. As you guys can see, this is a PowerPoint. And so, if you just want to delete a slide, maybe you only want to have it be 4 slides. It's super easy to delete. And you really are going to see a lot of data in terms of what's available on the platform. And one of the reasons why I really, really enjoy walking through this as well, is even as you guys see in our platform, like we like slice and dice data any way that you want. And so we want to ensure that this is like an easy snapshot of, what's actually going on. But if you want raw data, we've got it. There's nothing that we don't test for. There's nothing that we don't watch. There's nothing that we don't know. And like there are I told you, let me talk about Cybeready. I'll talk for 2 days straight.
But I
We have
think I
to go.
think fundamentally,
Yeah.
Demi, the thing to draw from this is all the data's there. It's all well laid out in a presentation form.
Yeah.
And instead of spending your time creating this, you as the security awareness training manager, the CISO, can spend your time reviewing this and find those nuggets that you found, right? The
Yeah.
IT group, the support group actually are the ones that need help versus spending all your time creating this. So no, I
Yeah.
think this is really good. I
Yeah.
think was there anything else you wanted to show, Demi?
Yeah, just one last thing. So just so you guys know, we do have smishing available. Of course, we have compliance trainings as well. And then, I'd be happy to meet with anyone or a member of our team to walk through something that's more contextualized for your environment.
Yeah. So smishing, I think, is a really good one. We need to mention that it is integrated in the platform and available, right? So that's yet another vector that's out there where organizations are starting to see more and more risk from smishing perspective. So we're actually being able to address that, right? We sell the
Yep.
same great content, the same approach to training, right? Regular, continuous, small bites that are delivered right at the point of infraction in a positive manner. So again, just another vector that's going to be integrated into this. And we've got other things we're working on as a company, Teams, Slack, all those sorts of things to again help broaden the reach of this to help companies continue to stay protected. So I know we've run over a little bit. I do appreciate everybody hanging on and thanks very much for your time. I've had a couple questions come in over chat.
Perfect.
We'll give it a couple minutes here. If anybody else has any more questions they want to ask over chat, please feel free to. If not, we'll send you a recorded version of this webinar, so you'll have it. And as Demi said, we're here at all times to answer questions and do other things. So
Mhm.
please don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah. So if you want, I think we may be scheduled till 10:45, so I think we may have a couple minutes left here.
Oh, wonderful.
Um, yeah, so answering the first question, how do you handle sent credentials? Our users automatically get put into groups, high risk, medium, and low. People who send their credentials are gonna get put into our high risk user groups, and we'll make sure that we do whatever we can to get them down to a low user group. At phishing simulations where employee fulfilled credentials, how Cybeready handle those. Yep. Answered that. Perfect. Perfect. And if you guys
We had
have
one more here,
any,
Demi. We had one more just come up.
yep.
is AD the only way to get in customer database of employees, or is there another way? So we can use a CSV file, I think, is
Mhm.
another way to do it.
Yep.
Any other thing else you want to mention there, Demi?
No, so I say AD all the time, but that also includes Google Workspace. I did want to say that. It's just an easy way for me to say it.
Yep. So Google Active Directory, Google Workspace, or
Yep.
you can use
CSV.
CSV file.
Yep.
Any other questions? Thanks for everybody joining and hanging on. We really appreciate it. Okay, then we'll get this out to everybody. And Demi, thanks for the great demo. And everybody have a good afternoon.